Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. So today we are going to talk about MSTest and how much features and real work we have done over the last few years at Microsoft. I don't know how many of you know MSTest or are using MSTest. Yeah, quite a lot. So good. Hopefully you will find that super interesting and probably, or I hope, some kind of good reason for you to do some kind of evangelism in your friends or your colleagues to have more people using MSTest. And yeah, I hope you are going to have a fun time. So I'm Amaury Levé, I'm French, and I work at Microsoft on the .NET testing team with a couple of my colleagues that are on the front row. You can find me on the few social media and the usual links on the screen. It's usually the same kind of pseudo that I use, and it's not like about evangelism or something. It's more like I'm a big fan of Evangelion, a manga, and Link from the Legend of Zelda, so that's where my pseudo is coming from. With that being said, let's go into the content of the talk. So today we are going to talk about a few things. We are going to talk about the history of MSTest, some of the new features that we have brought to MSTest over the last few years, why you should be considering using MSTest instead of XUnit, NUnit, or something else that you are using. Then we'll talk a bit about what we are planning to bring as part of .NET testing for the future. So the next few months, maybe year. And at the end, we'll do a small summary on what we have seen together, and I will be answering any question you have. So let's start with the small introduction. So MSTest is Microsoft test framework. It's one of the oldest test frameworks on the .NET ecosystem, probably quite close to NUnit in terms of longevity. And as I was saying, it's Microsoft test framework, so it's backed up and implemented by Microsoft. It's supporting all the target frameworks, so relatively old .NET 4.6.2 to the latest .NET 9, including some specific things like AWP, WinUI, and things like that. It's also the framework that is best integrated into Visual Studio and all the ecosystem, so Azure DevOps and things like that. Moving on to a bit of history, MSTest, the first version of it, that was called, I never recall the name exactly, Microsoft Visual Studio Quality Tools Unit Test Framework, was released in November 2005, along with the associated VS, so VS 2005. I don't know how many of you have started there, or yeah. So it's, as you can see, quite old. At this time, it was basically shipped as a kind of full feature. So it was containing the framework and also the connection and the integration into VS. A couple of years later, in about 2012, the MSTest code base was actually split into multiple products. So we kept MSTest, and we also introduced VS Test, so Visual Studio Test, and the Test Explorer. The idea was to be able to split the testing framework and the testing tools to allow a better integration and a common integration with other test framework, mainly NUnit at that time, because they used to have to duplicate a lot of the logic and a lot of the integration into VS. And the idea was to try to provide a common feature and a common, let's say, way of doing testing inside of VS. A couple of years later, in 2016, the MSTest v2 and VSTest v2 were born out of that with the idea of having some kind of unified version. So there were a lot of versions of MSTest with different behaviors depending on the platform and the target framework you were selecting. And the idea was really to try to kind of have one version of MSTest that you can use in all the ecosystem, all the target framework platforms that you are using. It was also the first version that introduced the support of .NET Core with, as you can see, many different paradigms from moving from .NET Framework to .NET Core. A couple of years later, in 2022, so when I took over MSTest, we released the v3 with the main goal of trying to stick to semantic versioning, to try to help our users and customers better understand the kind of impact the upgrade of MSTest is going to be for them. So as you can probably know, the major version means that there is some breaking change. The minor version means that we are adding more features, and the bug fix version means that we are fixing some bugs. We also took this breaking change version as a kind of way for us to try to change and set up some of the defaults and try to remove some of the specific codes that was done for some of the special targets like AWP and things like that. This was a big release, this V3, and since then we have tried to be having quite regular releases so that the users can benefit from more features and can try to have up-to-date version of the testing and try to have as many new features or closing the gap, sometimes also with XUnit and NUnit. Moving on a bit more in this story, we introduced MSTest 3.2 in 2024, so early this year, with the idea of providing a new testing platform. So moving on to the next slide, but as a continuation to what I was just saying, there is something in .NET testing that is a bit different from some other languages. In .NET testing, we have this notion of test framework and test platform. It's not something that exists in all languages, but this is how we are doing things in .NET. I would like to be spending a few minutes there so that all the concepts are clear for you and that we can better understand some of the new features and changes that we have done. On the left side for you, you have the testing framework. So the testing framework is basically the set of APIs and conventions you use to write your test. It can be assertions, the way you do the fixtures, the available attributes, and also the discovery and execution. So when you use MSTest as test framework, MSTest has its own logic of scheduling and running your tests. On the other side of that, so the test framework, we have the test platform. The idea of the test platform is to try to provide the common features and the integration with the ecosystem. So when you are using the platform, the most known one is VSTest, that is what is running all of your tests as of today. This platform is going to provide the integration with Test Explorer inside of Visual Studio or VS Code. It's going to have the integration into Azure DevOps, if you have used the VSTest task in Azure DevOps. And it's also going to provide some of the common features so that the different test framework authors don't have to re-implement the same thing. Some of these features are TRX. So if you are using MSTest, XUnit, and NUnit, and you want to provide a TRX test result format, to create this report, it's not going to be some logic that is implemented inside of MSTest, inside of XUnit and NUnit. It's a platform that is going to provide this feature. Same thing, we have troubleshooting, logging, and many more features that are available into this new platform. And in the middle, between this framework and this platform, we have something that is called a test adapter. It's actually the terminology that we use for the case of VSTest. And this adapter is going to be doing the translation both ways between the API, the request of the platform, and how the framework works. Let's take a really simple example. You want to run some tests. You are going to open Visual Studio Test Explorer, for example, select a couple of tests, and click Run. The run is going to actually go through VSTest and say, I want to do a run request with some filters or some specific list of tests. The platform is going to forward this call to the framework through the adapter. The framework is going to do its own logic and probably find some result, test pass, test fail, things like that. And then MSTest, or any framework, is going to then call back VSTest with some results so that VSTest can do its magic, so do TRX, display the test inside of Test Explorer, and all of these kind of things. So really, you have the test framework. That's how you write your test. You have the test adapter, that's the connection between the framework and the platform. And you have the platform, that's how every framework is connected to the ecosystem. Sorry. Now that we have done this introduction with the history, with a bit of fundamental on the test framework and the test platform, we can move on the new things that we have added to MSTest. So we'll be seeing a couple of things on this list of new features. The first thing is going to be meta packages. Then we'll move on to the SDK, to Analyzer, to MSTest Runner, our new testing platform. And then we'll do a bit of view of all the rest of the features that we have brought to MSTest. Starting with the meta package. One thing that we have noticed, talking with our customers and with our users, is that it's sometimes painful for the users to have to keep the version aligned and to have so many packages declared in your project. The usual example is you have MSTest Test Adapter, MSTest Test Framework, Microsoft MSTest SDK, which, by the way, for the people that don't know, this is containing the object model that allows the communication between the platform and the framework. And if you have been following some of the recent versions of MSTest, we have started to add analyzers. So most likely your project is going to have these 4 package references declared. With the meta package that is aligned on the top, you can simply declare one package, MSTest, and we are going to transitively depend on every packages that is required. At the moment, these 4 packages with the right versions. So no more having to think about my test adapter and framework are up to date. I have to update multiple versions if you're not using CPM. You can simply change one version and everything is going to be good for you. Moving on to this concept of trying to simplify your life and trying to provide a better testing experience for you, we have also provided a new package that is called MSTest SDK. MSTest SDK is kind of the one feature to rule them all, if I can say. It's a special MS Build SDK project. So you can simply change the line on top of your file from Microsoft Net SDK to MSTest. And you are going to start using the MSTest SDK. By doing that, you will get a first-class experience. So you will have the best recommended defaults for most of the users' situations. And you will have an easy way for you to do some configuration. So adding or removing some packages, changing some of the default configuration that we are bringing. And really, this is the modern way what we are recommending to consume MSTest, because this is really allowing to enable many new scenarios for you. We are going to move to a quick demo of that MSTest SDK. So I have my project, and as you can see, it's a regular MSTest project. I have my properties, so test project, I have my various packages, and we can move on together to try to use the MSTest SDK and see how it's going to look like. So the first thing we can do is to be changing the SDK line on top of the file. And at the moment, we are going to use, we are going to define the version we want to use directly on top of the file, but you can do that in multiple ways, which we can talk about later if you want. By doing that, you are now starting to see changes on the left side in the list of packages that are available, because we are starting to onboard to this SDK. Now we can move on to the simplification of your test project. So we can start by getting rid of all the package reference. And you will see that you still have them all declared for you. So you don't even have to think about the packages. They are all done and taken care of for you. The second thing we can do, I don't know if you are using the global using, but sometimes you can define that into your CS proj. And obviously, this is some kind of boilerplate. This is taking some line in your CS proj. So because you are using MSTest, you probably want to have this feature. So you can get rid of it. It's already provided and taken care of by the SDK. When you do that, you have all you need. And we can move on to the simplification a little more and remove all the extra properties. And so now your test project looks like this. Obviously, this is a bit simplified because I don't have my reference to the normal source code, but you could clearly see that by having my item groups with my list of project reference or extra packages, I have something that is really simple to use. I don't have a lot of the boilerplate that I need to keep in my project. And I am sure that every time I'm going to do an update, and we follow semantic versioning just to recall you, you are going to have the recommended default. So if you want to be using what we recommend, you simply have to bump, and you will always have the best recommendation for you. Obviously, as I was saying, you can do many configurations to that, and some of the example is, let's say you want to use Playwright. You want to do Playwright testing in your project. Before, you had to add some of the NuGet packages into your project and ensure the version is correct and compatible with MSTest, etc., etc. Now you can simply add some properties to your project. So, for example, enable Playwright true. And you see that on the left side, we start to have some new NuGet packages that are showing up. Microsoft Playwright MSTest. Same thing, you don't have to care about the version. When you use the 363 or whatever version, we are always making sure that the list of the packages that we are bringing are all working together. So a lot of hassle that is removed from you. Obviously, we have way more features, and I really highly recommend you to go and check the documentation to see everything that could be working out for you. Moving back to the slides. So we have seen that on modern version of MSTest, you have the meta package. That is a good way for you to simplify your project configuration. And you can even go one step further and use the MSTest SDK to have really all the boilerplate removed, to have a good set of defaults that is going to evolve over time. And you can have a really good customization there. Moving on to the next features that we've been adding to MSTest, we have worked really hard on adding analyzers. So you probably know that XUnit and NUnit have that for quite some time now, but we are trying to close the gap and trying to really focus on what has the most impact for you, for our users. On this work that we have done, maybe first question would be, who is familiar with static code analysis, with the analyzers in .NET and Roslyn? Yeah, a few people, okay. So basically the analyzers are an extension or some plugin that you can write to the compiler, and that's going to give you real-time information and guidance about the code you write. So let's say that you are using MSTest and there are some things that you are not really sure how to use correctly. By having this analyzer on your project, we are able to warn you if you are using something incorrectly. As of today, as of the 3.6 release of MSTest, we have 11 design rules, including 6 with code fixes, 1 performance rule, 21 usage rules, and 11 of them that have code fixes. Moving on that, we are again going to move to a quick demo. So I have my second project there that is demo analyzers. I am using the SDK version, but I could be using the meta package, as I was saying, or we could even have all the packages and make sure that we also have MSTest.analyzers. The first case that I would like to show is about some of the invalid usage. I don't know if you are always good or if sometimes you have some problems with declaring some of the class initialize, class cleanup, assembly initialize, assembly cleanup, test initialize, test cleanup methods. You never really recall if it takes a parameter, if it doesn't take parameter, is it static, is it not static? Well, using the analyzers, you can see that there I have some squiggle lines, and that you can see we have the MSTest 0010 issue raising something and telling me that the signature of the method is invalid. So obviously, I can go and look at the documentation. I can open the error list and expand the issue to get a bit more information about what I need to do. So public, static, not a string void, etc., etc. But one thing that you can do, but is probably even better, is to simply use the code fix and fix the signature, and boom, your class initialize is not correctly written. So This is one of the examples of how the analyzer can really help you while you are using MSTest. Another maybe trivial example is the inversion of the parameters. So most of the API in MSTest, they expect actual and unexpected. And we have seen that many people are confusing the two arguments. Although it's not technically wrong, the assertion is going to work correctly. So for example, in this case, R equal, you will get the right result. But one thing that could be a bit hard is what you are going to see is something like that. Assert equal failed, expected 42, actual 1. But when I look at my code, and most of the time when you are in CI and you see this issue, and you are going to start doing some investigation, you have more complex tests, and you are probably going to be looking at the wrong direction because you are having a wrong expected and actual values. Obviously, in this case, the first argument that was expected is 1, and the actual value was supposed to be my variable. Again, we have added some code fixes there that is going to be fixing the actual expected argument order. And when I select it, I see that everything is now correct. So expected is 1, my constant value, and actual is the value that is coming from running my test or getting my code. Moving on, we have a couple of properties that you can use with MSTest. And some of these properties are requiring to be put on test methods. This is the case for the test property that allows you to associate some key value metadata to your test. This attribute is only working in the context of a test method. And sometimes people were not really sure why this attribute was not working correctly. It's because it needs to be associated with a test method. Once again, we have now added a couple of analyzers for that, and you now have a warning, and you also have the code fix that goes with it to add the test method attribute. Moving on to different kind of issue, we have also worked on parameterized test, which I guess is probably one of the biggest features that you are using. And in this case, you see that my method expects to have an int argument, int parameter, and a string parameter, so int string. What I'm passing in my data row is the opposite. I did a mistake, I swapped my arguments. And now you can see that we have an issue that is being raised and that is telling you the indices of the mismatch. I agree with you, the message could be improved, and that's probably what we are going to do for the next release. But at least at the moment, if you are using it, you know that you will get something flagged if there is a mistake in your code. Moving on with dynamic data, that is the other way to use parameterized test. You will see that by default, when you use dynamic data, you expect the data source, the method that is linked to that, to be a property. In this case, getValues is a method and not a property. And so if I look at the warning that is associated, it's telling me getValues is a method, so you should set dynamic data source type to method, which I have done on the line below, but I still get some warning. So let's look. And now it's telling me parameterized test.getValues signature is invalid. What's going on? So I can look at the documentation, and I will realize that the member that provides the data needs to be static. By doing that, boom, warning is gone. So by doing that and having that as a good practice in your code base, you are sure that the way you write your tests is correct and it's using the best configuration that we can recommend. Moving back again to the slides. So we have seen ways of improving the way you can consume MSTest, ways of having better default configuration for MSTest, ways to improve the way you write your test and use MSTest with these analyzers. Now we are going to move to MSTest Runner. MSTest Runner is a new feature of MSTest that is built on top of a new platform that we have developed at Microsoft. And I will start by a quick demo on how you enable that, what are some nice use cases that you can do, and then we'll go back to that and see a bit more how it works technically. So before opening VS, we have Marco in the audience there. That is the kind of like father of this new platform. So if you want to do a small round of applause for him and his idea. Okay, moving on to the runner. So one of the things is by using MSTest SDK, you are going to automatically opt in to this new runner by default, because this is part of the recommendation we are making for you. Obviously, if you want to still be using VS Test, you have some flags that you can put on it. Use VS Test, true, and boom, you are getting rid of the new platform and still using VS Test. But let's move on with the new runner. The other way for you, if you don't want to be using the MSTest SDK, is on your regular project, you want to add these two properties. The first one, enable MSTest runner, is going to be activating the runner into your project. The second one is changing the type of your project to no longer be a DLL, but to be an executable. You might be asking why, and we are going to see that in a second. By using this new runner, by using this new platform, we can now do a lot of things that were not possible before. One of them that I particularly like is I can simply press F5 on my test project. Obviously, it needs to redo a bit of build, but it's going to execute my test and reach the breakpoint. This is something that was not possible with VS Test. You had to do a right-click, debug test. Sometimes you were not doing it in the right location, and so the correct breakpoint was not it, etc., etc. Some of the things that are going through having the test no longer a library, but a self-contained platform, a self-contained executable test application, is that you can use all of the features that are linked to working with an exe. You want to do some diagnostic, you simply can use the diagnostic tool that goes when you are doing the F5. You are using the competition, same thing, everything is working. And we can even move on there and say, now that we are having an exe, I can start using the launch settings JSON feature to start doing some of the, condition or parameterization to my test. Let's do a really quick first intro. So I'm just going to add the command line filter and say I want to run only the test method 1. Now, if I do Control F5, you will see that only one test passes, because we are applying and respecting the launch settings, because we are now simply a test exe. The second thing I want to show you, and I hope you are going to like it, is we have worked on a better CLI experience when you are running your test. So you see that you have something that is moving on. When the tests are failing, they are starting to be displayed. You will see that the number of tests is going to increase as the test is moving on. Sorry, let me start again. So you see 1, 2, 3, it's going on. You can really start to have the nice live experience with that. Once again, we are pretty lucky. We have Jakob who is in the audience and with the investigator and the actual executor of this new behavior. So I really hope you are going to enjoy that. One command that we got from some of the users is that despite this nice new live experience that is showing you the number of past tests or skip tests, some people still want to be showing the past tests inside of the console. So we have worked on doing that. You can simply do -- output and detailed. And now, if I do the exact same thing, you see that in addition to having this number increasing, every test that passes is now displayed in the console. So this is allowing you to have both modes, something that is maybe a bit more closer to the experience you used to have with VS Test, and something that is probably going closer to the new experience that we want to ship by default. Moving on a bit more on that, there is some other feature that we can do. And basically, if I go back to my project, When I use the MSTest SDK, I was telling you that you have now easy ways to be opt-in to new features. One of the features that I'm enabling now is called Microsoft Testing Hot Reload. And so I'm just setting enable Microsoft Testing extension hot reload. I set it to true. And when I do that, in the list of packages, you will see that I have one new package that is added, this hot reload extension. By doing that, I can now set some environment variable. Testing platform hot reload enable to 1, to true. And when I'm going to run, I'm going now to run my test in hot reload mode. So if I move to the side, let me just close that and scroll back. I have all my tests that are running. And you see that the test method 2 was failing because we are doing some kind of assert fail. Now, if I simply command this line and press save, you see that the test is now starting again. The new session is starting. Or maybe there is a live effect. I tried it again just before the, yeah, okay, all the tests are now passing. We don't have the fail test. Obviously, this is a really simplified example, but one of the things that is really nice with this hot reload is that it's not only working with your test code, but it's also working with your main code. So you are changing your main application, you are saving, and the tests are going to be executed. Obviously, you can combine all of these features together. So let's say you want to be focusing on one of the tests that is failing. You can put the command line argument filter to say, I want to have only this test running. You enable the hot reload. And now you can do your test, your modification, and you have some continuous testing feature that is available for you. Sorry, there was one more thing I wanted to show you. Moving to the console, so we have seen a couple of VS features. Let me just make sure that things are commented. Obviously, all these features are available in VS, but that means we also have nice integration in the CLI. Now that we are a simple exe, we can do .NET Run. That was not possible before. Obviously, .NET Run, like any other project that uses .NET Run, is going to use the launch settings. So if you are setting up some things in the launch settings, things are going to be respected. So filters and all the other arguments. The second thing that we can do is, because we are an exe, we can do .NET exe or exec or just simply .NET, and we'll have the test running. This was, again, not possible before. Now we are no longer a special library. We just include in every scenario and every normal behavior you have when working with .NET. And obviously, because you all love it, you can continue to be doing .NET test. We are working on a different experience that is linked to the new version of .NET that is also going to be providing this kind of live experience. So this is what you are seeing at the moment. This is something that you can turn off if you don't like it. There is all the documentation available in SDK. Let's get back to the slides. So one of the key fundamental differences that we have seen there is the architecture of the new platform. When you compare the new architecture to the old one, you have VS Test that is on the right side. You have VS Test console exe that is shipped as part of VS, as part of a NuGet, and as part of SDK. It's then going to try to spawn a test host for each of the test library that you have, that is then going to load through reflection, through dynamic loading and reflection, the test DLL that you have. And it's also going to force some dependencies on you. So Newtons of JSON, NuGet framework, although we get rid of NuGet framework in recent version, I don't recall which one, but now you only have Newtons of JSON. But let's say you wanted to test Newtons of JSON with an old version that is not compatible with the one brought by VS Test, you will have some kind of runtime conflict. The second thing that you can notice from that is because we have two processes for a single library, that means that you have the time to spawn two processes, and you have some communication between these two processes. So serialization, back and forth between the two processes, while most of the time you don't really need that, and it will be way simpler if you had a simple exe. This is what we are doing and shipping with the new platform. With this new platform, if I really want to summarize it, the idea is to say you are going to provide a test application. You have a self-contained test application. You don't need anything else. You can directly call the exe or no extension on Linux using the normal calls, but basically you are producing an executable that is self-contained and just work on its own. Some of the pillars, and I'm going to be relatively fast on them. On these new platforms, the first and foremost is determinism. With MSTest, because of the designs that was taken quite a long time ago, they are doing a lot of scannings of DLLs by a suffix. They are doing a lot of dynamic loading, reflection, etc., which has a lot of benefits, but is also having some problems, which means that, for example, a test could work on your machine, but not work on your colleague's machine or on the CI, because some different DLLs are available, not only in your bin, but in some other folders. One example of that is VS. I have some extension installed on my machine, and it's containing the test adapter DLL for some reason, the MSTest test adapter. VSTest is going to load this one, and not the one that is inside of my bin, so I will have a different behavior than running the same test on your machine, maybe, but doesn't have this extension. Most of the time, it's kind of okay, but we have seen quite a few cases where it's causing some issues. And this non-deterministic behavior is relatively hard to investigate, to explain. So when you are coming with some bugs, it's taking quite a lot of time for us. And when we are giving you the explanation, most of the time you are not so happy about that, to say, why do I have to uninstall this extension to have something that works? The second thing is about portability and hostability. This new platform, as we are seeing, is self-contained. We have done some example with a console, but you could do it with literally anything. You want to do something that is hosted in a web app, create the test application, start it within your web application, and that's it. You have a couple of APIs to call, but that's it. You can really do everything programmatically. You want to start it from a WPF main application? Go for it. You can do it. So it's really, really powerful. At the moment, because we are having limited resources, we couldn't do everything, but all the fundamental pieces are there, and you can already include that in any of the applications you want. The next part is performance. As you have seen, we have less processes. We don't have serialization between the two processes every time there is something going on. We do, I was going to say less reflection. We don't do reflection. We don't have dynamic scanning. We are having less dependencies. So with all of that, you have less pollution of your bin, you have better performance, and you have also a really reduced memory footprint. What we have seen is that in average, you have a 30% less overhead when using the new platform compared to MSTest, memory and time execution. The next pillar is about being future-proof. Some of the things that we are providing with this new platform is we are supporting all target framework. We are supporting all form factors. So form factors is what it's the name that is used by runtime for any of the specific things you can do. You want to do single file app, you can do it with this new platform and your test app. That was not possible before. Self-contained, same thing. Native AOT. Are you interested in native AOT? Maybe. This is something that is already supported by default with the new platform. And some of the new framework and MSTest are also building on top of it so that we can provide testing in native AOT. It's extensible, so it's built really around extensibility. I don't know if you will be user or kind of like extension author, so it could be less interesting for you, but everything is really made to be extensible, so you can really plug into any pieces of the test execution. You can change the orchestration, you can add some command line arguments, you can create new test reports and all of that. And the last thing that might be important or not for you is security. Because we have no dependency, because we are not inserted anywhere, not into SDK, not into VS, we are simply shipped as a NuGet package, we can provide bug fixes same day. So that could be a good relief for you, depending on the criticality of the test for your company or for your test. I'm going to skip that quickly, but basically we have done quite a lot of tests. At first we were testing on some, let's say, fake application that we were generating. We have onboarded some of the internal team at Microsoft, and we are also discussing with some external users and customers to try to have them onboarding to the new platform. And we are seeing this constant, about 30% reduction in the overhead. Moving on, so I've done a focus on a couple of things that I think are the most interesting things, but we have done a lot more features. We have done pioneering, so as you can see, MSTest was the first framework to support the new platform. It's there since 3.2, so it's about January this year. XUnit and NUnit, in case you are using that, they are now onboarding to this new platform, so you should be able to test that soon if you are interested. We are providing native AOT support for testing. We have the support for hot reload that I did a demo for. And this is part of the features where we are the first one, and for some of them, we are the only one to be doing that. I will move on quite quickly on the rest, but we have done a lot of enhancements on MSTest, most of them driven by you, by the users, by what you are asking for. So we have fixed all long-standing issues. We have addressed most of the most upvoted feature requests. We are trying our best to close the gap on everything that you think is interesting or missing that is available in NUnit or XUnit, for example. So we have done adding test thread testing. We have more fine-grained timeout if you want to be having a better timeout on a specific method, better error handling and things like that. We are also trying to work hard on communication to have a good relationship with users and customers so that you can really trust us, suggest some new features, report bugs, and we can try to have this like virtuous circle of providing a better testing experience. The fifth point is this kind of test anywhere name, where really our ID, and I think this is one of the differentiators of MSTest compared to the concurrence, is that we are the only framework where you can test virtually everywhere, WP, WinUI, MAUI, .NET Framework, .NET Core, and much more. And we are trying to maintain a really high quality in what we are delivering, whether it's MSTest or this new platform. Continuing on that, and why MSTest can be a good pick for you if you're not using MSTest already. MSTest is the top used framework by most of the companies of most of the fields. I've given some example there. So Texas Instruments could be a good reference for writing quality tools. They are using MSTest. Thales, Aerospatial and other parts, they are using MSTest. Azure, that is providing a lot of the services that either you write or you use, same thing. The list is long, but basically we have gaming, we have health, we have industry, we have banking, we have networking. So all the major actors in the world, they are using MSTest to do their tests. Maybe it's not going to be a good argument for you, but I think it's kind of showing the quality and the wide usage of what we are shipping. Some of the new or differentiator that we have is this kind of notion of universal testing, test anywhere. So I was talking about frameworks, I was talking about platforms, WP, WinUI, and much more. With the new platform, we also have the support of the form factors. So as I was saying, native AOT, single file app, self-contained application, all of that, we support everything. We have, obviously, for the people there that are going through companies, we have premium support, which we are the only one to provide. We are working hard to try to bridge future and past. What I mean there is we are trying to be backward compatible as much as we can when we think that the feature is good. Obviously, sometimes for some of the feature, we need to be changing the default, so there might be a breaking change. But as much as possible, we try to bring or maintain this backward compatible. So we can change the default, but there is a way for you to still use the MSTest in the old way. We are doing innovation. As I was saying, native IoT, the new platform, all of this kind of thing. We are really trying to drive .NET testing, which I don't know what is your view, but has been a bit lacking lately. And most of the innovation has been brought by the community, and I think we are lucky to have such a good community. MSTest is secure. This is the top priority of Microsoft, to provide secure application. And MSTest, being Microsoft product, is following the same pattern. So we are providing the most secure test framework out there. And the last thing, and it's some personal, let's say, battle, I'm really trying to build this good community, this good engagement with you, with the users, to try to see how we can solve some of the problems you have, because we have seen so many customers building the same kind of feature, a bit different everywhere, and then having to pay the cost of maintaining that, and then having issues when they are trying to upgrade to a new version because something is no longer working. If we can talk together, I'm pretty sure that most of the things that you are in need for is something that is common to other developers, to other companies, and so something that we could be providing for you. About the future, we are going to work hard at the moment on accelerating the adoption of the new platform. We are making sure to support all the test framework. So we are done with XUnit and NUnit. There are some previews and betas available. I am closing up something with F# Expecto if some people there are using F# to do the testing. We are completing the new .NET Test experience. We are, at the moment, supporting .NET Test, but let's say we are kind of hacking how VS Test is integrated into .NET Test. And there, the idea is to really provide a new, refreshed, modern experience for testing. We have a retry extension that is working well in CLI, not only in Azure DevOps, and because it's CLI, it's working in every CI environment that you are using. But the integration in Azure DevOps has some flaws, and we are trying to work with them to fix that. The next thing is providing this new platform for WinUI, mobile, etc. As I was saying, the code is there, things are working. The only bits that are missing is examples, some fine-tuning for specific cases, like package application and things like that, where basically the platform is now inside the package world, and so it needs to be communicating back outside of this isolated environment. So it's mainly about how to simplify your experience there. A lot of features around AI in general, about Copilot. And the last thing, again, my battle, trying to get close to you all, trying to be able to work together to provide better testing for .NET. Summary, I think the catchphrase is pretty good, or at least I hope it is. We have really worked hard on trying to make MSTest a good framework, making MSTest something relatively recent, modern, that can fit most of your needs. And if something is not there, please reach out to us. Could be on GitHub, could be on Twitter, or anything else. We are also trying to make sure that we are sticking to the principles that are written around. So deterministic, efficient, innovative, being able to test anywhere, and being secure. I'm not sure if the slides will be shared or not, but basically this is linked to many resources that we have done. We have tried to be, and we are trying to be, doing blog posts quite often these days. We have updated all the official documentation on MSTest. It's now part of the .NET docs. We have documentation about the new platform, about the analyzers, etc. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.